Get ready to get deep. We're getting real deep on a Wednesday afternoon here, live from Sport Trade HQ in Studio S. My name is Dan Koob, executive producer of content and media here at Sport Trade. Before we hop into our conversation with our special guest today, Derek Gunn from Jacob Media, we of course want to tell you about the sweepstakes promo going on right now here on Market Movers. As simple as it gets, everybody. You want $100? We will give you $100. Once a week, we are giving away $100, and all you have to do is follow the Sport Trade app on Twitter and quote tweet the Market Movers Show, Trade Up, New Jersey. Derek Gunn joining us on Market Movers. Derek, so happy to have you here. I know we are in a state of somewhat of mourning over the Eagles losing to the Commanders Monday night, at least maybe some of the city, South Jersey area, mourning the loss of an undefeated season. But, to be honest, it's going to happen at some point, right? Like, this was never realistic.
See, I'm glad you're realistic about this because, people are down in the dumps and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You knew it was going to happen sooner or later. Now, of all the possibilities we thought about that the Eagles could lose to, Washington was not among them. But going into that Washington game, I was preaching, and, the guys on my show, Sports Take, Rob Ellis and Barrett Brooks, were saying, yeah, okay. I said, what we're missing here is over the last 5 games leading up to the Eagles game, Washington was 3-2, and all 5 of those games have been decided by 4 points or less.
Yep.
And Taylor Heineke was 2-1 since he took over the starting role of this team. So don't discount this Washington team because they have a different energy about them. In the game before they played the Eagles, they played Minnesota. They had Minnesota dead to rights. They had Minnesota down 17-7 in the fourth quarter. Taylor Heineke serves up a couple of mistakes, let Minnesota back in the game. Lo and behold, Minnesota wins the game 20-17. I said, eventually, Washington is going to get this right. And lo and behold, they picked the national stage of Monday Night Football to get it right. And I understand why Eagles fans are hurting, but hey, look, you're still 8-1. You are still the number one seed in the NFC. You're still the best team in the NFC. So you know what? Get this out of the system and let's move on.
You look at the way Washington approached the game too, right? The best game plan
Right.
anybody has had against the Eagles this season. You look at the
No,
way
no
the
question.
Eagles have defended the run. They've been terrible, even dating
Yes.
back prior to the Jordan Davis injury. So
Yes.
time of possession was huge. They just grinded out first and second downs, got themselves in short yardage situations on third, and were able to convert. And that limits the Eagles' ability to stay on the field offensively. And they turned the ball over 4 times. So if you're looking at this from the Eagles' perspective, yes, the team you just lost to not only had the perfect game plan and game plan execution,
Yeah.
but you still could have won anyway.
Yes.
So I leave that game as an Eagles fan, as somebody who trades on the Eagles all the time on Sport Trade, saying,
Yeah.
okay, so what? Like, you got us. But the Eagles also played one of their worst games of the season.
Well, it was bound to happen. They've had that proverbial bullseye on their back for weeks now. They've become the talk of the National Football League. Every talk show around America is talking about the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. They're constantly asked about it in the locker room, and eventually it gets to you. Now, they'd only played the game against Washington was only their second game in the last 28, 29 games.
Great point.
I'm not going to say that they were rusty, but they were not sharp. One thing I'll give this team credit for is the fact that they're a very even keel team. They don't get too high, they don't get too low, and they constantly tell you, look, we haven't won anything. We're not anywhere near where we want to get to be, and that starts with the veteran leadership at the top, the few holdovers from the Super Bowl team, and I'm talking about Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, guys like that. So they've kept this locker room even keel. It was just that. If you look at the parity across the NFL, everybody's had a dog day afternoon, and the dog bit the Eagles Monday night.
Such a great point about the rest, right? Because so
Sure.
much of the offseason prognostication now is rest versus, how much rest do you have versus how much rest does your opponent have, right? And people are now
Sure.
charting
Sure.
how much rest you get. But it's a great point. They have a bye, or they have a bye, a Thursday game, and then a Monday game. They just haven't had a chance to
Absolutely.
get into a rhythm.
No.
In terms of the futures market on Sport Trader, which I'll pull up now, I mean, the Eagles
Yep.
took a little bit of a hit, but frankly, I don't see it being a huge deal. The Eagles went from $15.50 per contract to win the Super Bowl down to $13. So sentiment slightly down, but I
Okay.
sense, Derek, that to you, this is much ado about nothing. Maybe a buying low opportunity to grab them at a smaller price.
Okay, now the price you just told me about, where it's a few dollars more, how much is equated into the fact that Dallas Goedert is now out indefinitely? We
Well, that-
still don't know the health status of A.J. Brown. Once A.J. Brown planted his foot and caught his only pass of the night, we saw him limping, and he was not the same guy the entire game. Now, if it's an ankle injury, here's the thing about ankle injury, knee injuries. When you play football, you have such an adrenaline rush that you play through certain injuries. And all of a sudden, when the body muscles and the tissues get to relax, that's when the swelling occurs. Now, NFL trainers, they do a great job of trying to keep swelling down and get you, with all the modern technology, get you ready for the next game. But we still have yet to hear how much it has affected or will affect AJ going into this game against Indianapolis. And keep in mind, it's on a short week. So he misses one extra day to get that thing right for this game coming up. And I'm wondering also how the money value is going to be affected if we find out that AJ might not play. And I'm just saying might not. We don't know for sure. But if it's, and everybody has a source, Dan, everybody has a source.
Yep.
If it comes out, AJ is going to try to play Sunday, but he's not 100%. How much will that also affect the dollar value as well?
It's a great question. The season long, I think that price is baked into it. I think the fact that they lost $2.50 indicates that there is some uncertainty with their
Yep.
skill position guys. And when we talk about the Colts, we'll get into what the pricing has done in terms of the markets. Any of these NFC East teams concern you? Are they an actual threat to the Eagles right now?
I've said time and time again, and people are starting to listen. I think San Francisco, is the most dangerous threat to the Eagles. San Francisco's biggest problem, number one, they weren't healthy. And number two, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey. Well, now they have Christian McCaffrey, and the defense is slowly starting to get healthy. Did you ever think that a 5-4 team would be considered a dangerous team?
Well, I
No.
mean, if you look at our pricing, they're right below the Eagles at $9.50 to win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people have been sniffing around them. And even though Eli Mitchell had more touches than Christian McCaffrey the other night.
Yes. Yes.
They're so multiple offensively, they have to be taken seriously.
You look at the dynamic of that offense now. If McCaffrey can stay healthy, coupled with Deebo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and you have I've never put Jimmy Garoppolo in the category of elite quarterback, but he is a good game manager. He doesn't turn the ball over much. All they've asked him to do is manage it. They have a rugged offensive line. They have a good running game. They have multiple weapons that can get deep or burn you if they get in the seam. They have one of the more physical defenses in all of pro football when they're healthy. This is a dangerous team. And the other team is Tampa. I said if Tampa ever gets healthy, watch out for Tampa. Lo and behold, they got Akeem Hicks back. They got Antoine Winfield back on the back end of that defense, who's the brains of that defense. Did you ever think the way Seattle was playing, they would jump out to a 21-3 lead on Seattle?
Right.
And then cruise to a 21-16 lead? No. But because they're healthy, and I don't want to see Tom Brady in any way, shape, or form in a playoff scenario. I don't care if he is 45 years old. The man is still number 2 in the NFL in passing. You're not going to sack him. He's still zinging it. He's still got a lot of zip on his ball. So to me, if Tampa keeps ascending this way, if the 49ers get healthy, I think they're more dangerous than Dallas, the Giants, anybody else that you can think of in the NFC.
Giants are 7-2, home against the Lions this week.
Yep.
Do we care? Are they for real?
Well, I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I do too.
But I will say this. Brian Daboll has done wonders with Daniel Jones in terms of minimizing his mistake ratio. I mean, he only has 2 interceptions through 9 games at this point. They have the second best running back in the NFL right now in terms of yards in Saquon Barkley. Or is he number 1? I think Saquon's number 1
now. Yeah.
Yeah. The Saquon's number 1. The receiving core is a bunch of guys that like, I'm like, who is it? And then Wink Martindale was a great addition as a defensive coordinator. So yeah, they're a dangerous team. They're for real. I'm still waiting. I'm here when it comes to they're for real. But there's a small part of me that keeps saying I'm waiting for them to resort back to the old Giants. Hasn't happened yet, so we'll see.
One of the most cash-strapped teams of the entire league, too. I think that organization has done an amazing job this year with a team that has so much dead cap money sitting off the roster. It's been pretty amazing. I pulled this up. This is the Eagles futures market here to win the Super Bowl. This was a trade in which the Eagles were bought at $12.50 weeks ago. So it was up to $15.5, now back down to $13. So a 50-cent rise in value, 10 contracts, a $5 rise overall. Hopefully anticipating that'll go up for our trader. Before we go to the Colts-Eagles game, one last note here as we kind of look forward, Gunnar. The last 5 games, we talked about the run defense a little bit ago. They allowed 124 yards to the Arizona Cardinals in a win, 134 to the Dallas Cowboys in a win, 144 to the Steelers, who I believe are 2-6 or 3-6.
I think they're 3-6. Yeah.
Yeah. 168 to Houston, and then 152 to Washington. So their next 4 games: Colts, Packers, Titans, Giants. The Packers are 12th in the NFL in rushing. The Titans 9th. The Giants 3rd. This team also allowed 181 yards on the ground to the Detroit Lions. So to me, this is not a Jordan Davis problem. How much of this to you, Gunnar, is a Jonathan Gannon issue?
I think it's a scheme problem. I honestly believe it's a scheme problem. I think the Houston Texans basically sent everybody the playbook in terms of how to stay with this explosive Eagles team. If you can control the ball and control the clock, you have a fair chance to win. The difference between Houston and Washington was Houston did not have enough personnel to finish the job.
Yeah.
Washington did. So, you're talking about an Eagles team and what they're looking at moving forward. So I just pulled up some numbers, So they're about to face this guy named Jonathan Taylor, who's finally healthy. Oh, by the way, he just ran for $147 on 22 carries. He's averaging 4.7 yards a carry.
I've heard of him.
You mentioned Green Bay. Aaron Jones is averaging 5.6 yards. His running mate, A.J. Dillon, averaging 4.1. Derrick Henry, who is the number 2 rusher in the NFL, is averaging 4.6. Saquon, who they have to see twice, averaging 4.7. Then you have Chicago, okay? Now, you have Khalil Herbert, who's on IR right now because of a hip injury, but he's going to come off in 4 weeks. which is about when the Eagles are going to play them, he's averaging 6 yards a carry. His running mate, David Montgomery, is averaging 3.8. And oh, by the way, the leading rusher, Justin Fields, is averaging 7.8.
I was gonna say, you haven't even gotten to the best one.
No, I'm not, they haven't even gotten I'm not even talking about what they're going to face Christmas Eve. Tony Pollard's averaging 6.6 yards a carry, and Ezekiel Elliott 4.1. So you've got a litany of dangerous runners you're going to face and some good offensive lines. Indianapolis has a really good offensive line for run offense. Green Bay's run offense. Green Bay's offensive line is better suited for the run, as was Washington's, compared to their pass offense. Green Bay's pass offense is a sieve. They just ran for over 200 yards against Dallas. Oh, by the way, Green Bay also ran for $183 against a very good Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can run the ball and control the clock, you have a fighting chance against this Eagles team, because guess what? That explosive offense is sitting on the field while you're running up and down on a field on their defense. It's very easy what you need to do to play this Eagles team.
So what is the fix? I mean, you and I aren't grinding tape, right? We're not on the coaching staff. I couldn't believe how much 5-man fronts they played, even without Jordan Davis, on first and second down, and it didn't matter. But adjustments didn't come until way later when they finally moved Hargrave over center. But it seems like a very slow to react from the coaching staff, defensively at least, to react to offensive game plans. They seem very dead set in how they want to play defense on first down as opposed to second down, get teams behind schedule, and then get into their pass rushing packages. But if it's not working, what do they do?
You can't change the personnel.
Right.
You have to have a better commitment. You have to have a mindset that we need to win the trench warfare. And they have not done that. So I don't know if it's going to get any better because of the numbers you just talked about. 5 consecutive games, they've given up well over 100 yards on the ground. Now, sporadically, they bow up and make some necessary stops. I think in Washington's case, once they got the lead, they just went to a conservative game, which is dangerous to do against an explosive team. And as we saw, the Eagles got right back in a game in the second half. Lo and behold, turnovers cost them the game eventually. You know, teams that want to try to get a lead on this Eagles team and then basically go to a conservative mode, that's the wrong mindset. You have to keep pounding away at this team and try to put as much distance as you can between yourselves and them, because this team can strike at any given moment. They don't need 12, 15 play drives to score. They can hit you in any given moment. As we saw when he went over the top to Quez Watkins, and lo and behold, he gets stripped of the ball.
Yeah.
Because I believe if he had caught that ball dead running, that's a touchdown. Okay. Or they would have been deep in Washington territory. They would have scored a touchdown. But Washington defender does a great job stripping the ball. Lo and behold, momentum changes just like that. I don't know if you can do anything other than have more will in terms of how you want to play. The Eagles' tackling has been atrocious lately. First and foremost, that's the biggest problem. Now, they did a better job of tackling in the second half, but it's not been consistent for the last 5 games. You know, tackling is you have to want to mindset.
Yes.
And when I watched Washington's offensive line, they were consistently moving the Eagles' defensive front back. You know, now Washington only averaged 3.5 yards per carry, but 3.5 yards over 2 carries, 7 yards puts you in 3rd and short instead of 3rd and long. Now, if I'm anybody else playing this Eagles team, if we can get them in 3rd and short and we can run our play action, and we got a fighting chance against this team. It's plain and simple. It's simple basics of football.
What is the sentiment between, you know, the people who are watching and the guys over at Sports Take on Jacob Media about taking the tarp off of Nakobe Dean? 3rd round pick. Many suspected Nakobe Dean would be a 1st-round pick. Obviously, the leader emotionally, statistically, of that Georgia national championship defense a year ago. I look at it and say, okay, Kazir White, a little light in the seat, right? More of a pass coverage linebacker. 6'2", 235 pounds. Nakobe Dean's 5'11", 220. So I'm not entirely certain if that's the fix, is getting a more active guy. Because to me, it seems like a lot of these linebackers, Gunner, are playing as if Jordan Davis is still in front of them.
Right.
A 2-gap monster who is capable of occupying multiple guys and not moving, and he's just not there.
No, I agree. I don't know if Nakobe Dean's the answer also. Now, obviously, he's not playing because the linebackers in front of them have been playing better. Now, T.J. Edwards has had a couple of bad games. Kazir White had a bad game against Washington. Um, Kobe Dean is a little too light in the britches. Let's put it like that. As fast as he is sideline to sideline, obviously they don't feel he's ready to assume a bigger role because you don't see him except on special teams. And I don't think we're going to see him unless somebody gets hurt. I don't think you're going to see him from this point on, unless it's a situational where they need a pass rusher. Now, his claim to fame has been able, when he was at Georgia, he not only was he a sure tackler, but he hit the hole, he hit the gaps in a hurry. He found the openings in the picket fence to get to the quarterback. But for whatever reason, they've decided that we're going to keep him in the wings until further notice. And if you put him in the middle of this right now, I don't know if he'll thrive right now the way this defensive front is playing, especially against the run. I just think the guys in there have to have more of a commitment. And the more we on the outside looking in talk to these players in the locker room, every time you stick a mic in their face about the tackling, at some point, they're going to have that proverbial chip on their shoulder. So, you know what? I'm tired of getting asked questions about our run defense, and maybe they'll bow up. Now, which game is that going to be? We're going to find out soon enough.
So what you're saying, Gunner, is it's up to us, the media, to save the Eagles defense.
To keep egging them on.
Finally, somebody recognizes our role in all of this. We'll turn our attention to the Colts and the Eagles. Here's the pricing on Sport Trade. Now, last week, the Eagles were priced at $82 per contract to win the game, meaning an 82% chance to beat the Commanders. And I think that has directly influenced what we're seeing this week because, to me, the Colts are a lot worse, even with Jeff Saturday. And we'll talk about that whole thing in a minute. So the Eagles at $72.50 per contract to beat the Colts on the road this weekend. 7.5 is the line on Sport Trade, juiced towards the Colts to cover at 56.5. The over 44.5 is actually the same as it was against Washington, a game that went over. Over 44.5 trading at 51.5 on Sport Trade as well. I look at this, Gunner, and my first initial reaction, we have a fly in the studio. I'm like trying to do this. I'm trying to swat this fly. It's on my nose. It's on my forehead. I'm like trying to put on the TV face and like make sure I'm not like being too distracting, but this damn thing is all over my face. So the Eagles at 72.5, to me still feels a little high. So because on Sport Trade, you could buy the Colts and not expect them to win, right? Maybe the Colts hang around a little while longer and that goes up and you can sell it for profit. But to me, 72.5 does feel a touch too high. Now, having said that, we have seen this over and over and over again with an interim coach, right? You get super juiced up week one, and then reality starts to set in week two. I don't know if Jeff Saturday is going to be that way. He's a former player. He seems to have at least the ear of the leadership of that team. He reinstalled Matt Ryan as the quarterback after a couple really failed weeks of Sam Ehlinger. How do you size this one up?
Jeff Saturday walks in off the street, never assistant coach anywhere, never a coach anywhere. He says, I'm just going to delegate and step back. I'm going to let Gus Bradley and those guys do their thing. And, oh, by the way, I'm reinserting Matt Ryan. Well, all of a sudden, Matt Ryan goes 21 of 28, okay? And you finally got your running back healthy again. I think the numbers should be a little bit closer, than they are. I understand the Colts have been a very inconsistent team, but the Colts also have the fourth best defense in the league, which means they have a much better defensive unit. Now, they lost Shaquille Leonard for the season because he just had his second back surgery in 5 months, so he's gone. That's a big hit to that Colts defense. But that Colts defense is fast and they swarm and they're physical as well. So I think the numbers should be a little bit closer than what they are. And I'm waiting to see by Friday or Saturday how much the numbers fluctuate in terms of people starting to take a reality check and wait a minute. They're playing this one in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is sky high right now because they just got first win under new direction and they're catching the Eagles on a short week. So, the numbers you were just talking about, 72 and a half, I think 68 might be more realistic, 65, 68 before kickoff.
Okay. All right. So the Eagles, in your mind, Gunner, overvalued right now. So maybe a trade on the Colts at 28.5, again, just expecting them to sort of rise in value. And I'll be honest, I was watching the Monday Night Football game, and I thought the Eagles at 82 was way too high. After they go up 7-0, they are up at 90. But it became very obvious very quickly that the run defense just wasn't up to snuff. So I hate to admit this, I actually jumped on the Commanders at 26 when they were at a 26% chance to win, and ended up, making $75 off of that trade, only because you could tell it was going to be competitive all the way throughout. The Matt Ryan thing, I think, is really interesting. A guy who was hurt, right? Bad shoulder, offensive line that wasn't playing well. They paid Quentin Nelson, $100 million or whatever, the richest contract for a guard of all time. They had sort of attrition in their skill set, their skill position group. And then, of course, they have New Jersey's own Jonathan Taylor. It just seems like they got off to such a slow start. Is that a true indication of who this team is, or do you think they're catching the Colts sort of on the uprise a little bit?
It's hard to say on an uprise after just one game.
Yeah, that's true.
But obviously the Colts have momentum going because they have been down, and I'm sure maybe the Frank Reich message was getting stale to the team. And then when you make a desperation switch to an untested quarterback like a Sam Ehlinger, basically you're conceding the season. Well, lo and behold, you get new direction. You insert the 15-year vet, and everything is Camelot, and it works out. And you come away with an all-important W, and you're in a division where it's still very much winnable. Your record may not indicate it, but you're not out of that thing in AFC South. So you have a fighting chance. So I think momentum is in their favor right now. To what degree? We're going to find out at kickoff come 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Frank Reich reportedly consulting for the Eagles. How much are you picking his brain this week?
Well, consider Sirianni as one of his proteges. And Shane Steichen is Sirianni's right-hand man. If I'm Frank Reich, I'm not going in there making changes. I'm observing what you're doing, maybe tweaking. But I'm not surprised one bit because Sirianni has such a high respect for Frank Reich in terms of being an offensive mind. And I think it's a smart move on his part. Anybody and everybody I can get in terms of being an extra set of eyes to maybe see something that we're missing that we could tweak to make it that much better, by all means, bring them in. So it's a good move on the Eagles' part. If the rumor is correct, and we talked about this Monday on our show about that possibility. It's a good move. I mean, you look at what the Eagles have done in the past. They had Marty Mornhinweg in there, who's an offensive mind, to help look at things. Supposedly, Vic Fangio is a consultant for the Eagles as well. So obviously, with the personnel that they've brought in here, the volume of money they've brought in here, they weren't thinking about long term or immediate future. Let's build it gradually. No, once they identify what they had on this roster, hey, we can compete right now. So they're doing the right thing in terms of getting any and everybody in here who could be an expert to help them out.
You've got the one last thing, Gunnar, before we let you go. And again, we're always so thankful for your time. You've got the Packers helmet behind you. Of course, the live stream phone crapping out. Let's get it up here real quick. We'll go back to the futures market. There we go. Packers 80 cents to win the Super Bowl. What say you?
That's about right. The way they played this year, that's about right. I'm surprised it's that high, to be honest with
you. We had Guy Adami on from CNBC last week, and he said, I would short that thing until it rides straight into the ground. He's like, I will pay $99.20 to ride that thing right into the ground. Sentiment pretty low on Aaron Rodgers. Derek Gunn, thank you so much. Of course, check him out on Sports Take on Jacob Media, the pre- and post-game show as well. If you're from the area, obviously you know Gunnar. Thank you so much for your time, as always.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Anytime.
Quick fly update for everybody. Fly update. We got him. George Bush impersonation. One last look at the Market Movers weekly sweeps. Give it away $100, as you mentioned earlier. You just have to follow the Sport Trade app on Twitter and quote tweet the Market Mover Show with hashtag #TradeUpNewJersey. That'll wrap things up for a Wednesday Inside Studio S. We are back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Same time, same place. Another opportunity to win $100. My name is Dan Koob. We'll see you tomorrow.